Funny story, so I was making a video about the biography updates and a confirmation of Tom when we got a very interesting piece of information given to us. I will still go into Tom and the bio later, but let's first get into the new news. So, over the past week or so we have been receiving update teasers for Bendy and the Dark Revival. I haven't been covering these because they were rather short on information, but they are very neat. They are little newspaper clips depicting the downfall of Joey Drew Studios, which gave us a better idea of what happened at the time but is relatively known information. We know the studio went bankrupt, we know the cartoons stopped, and we know where Joey Drew ending up. Until now. This information involves Archgate Pictures and a one Nathan Arch. Hilariously, I had a timely mention of him on one of my last videos when I was discussing characters connected to Joey Drew Studios. Nathan Arch was a friend of Joey Drew's and ran Archgate Pictures, another animation company. He is also known apparently for producing Steel and Oil. In Boris and the Dark Survival, there is an audio log where Joey asks Nathan Arch for financial help. In this newest newspaper clipping it seems that Archgate Pictures bought out Joey Drew Studios, getting the rights to Bendy and all of the assets. Including, I would suppose, any remaining Ink Machine, Bendy merge, Forgotten Remains, and Sammy. In fact this newspaper sort of suggests he created Archgate Pictures specifically to buy out and create more Bendy cartoons. It's unclear if this was done as a favor to Joey and is the help he requested or was a sort of betrayal where Nathan seized his assets. We'll probably find out eventually. Though this answers a huge question that I had. What is the studio that Audrey is in? I thought maybe it was the real Joey Drew Studios and that the studios in the first game were just cartoon-infected versions in the cycle, but this might actually be Archgate's Bendy studio. Which begs a few interesting questions. The newspaper specifically refers to having a new, fresh workforce. That definitely sounds like a foreshadowing hint. This might also mean that our suspicions about Audrey being related to Henry or Joey may be completely unfounded. She really could just be an animator straight off the street. Though that would beg to question why she's the special one with the scary powers. A second one is more vague. See, we have heard that Bendy and the Dark Revival is not quite a sequel, but its own separate thing. Is it possible that the cycle for the first game and the cycle in the second game are completely different because they're formed in separate studios? That would mean Allison Angel Old and New might actually be completely different characters, or perhaps the new version is a reboot created when the assets switched hands. Say for example, if the cycle exists within the Ink Machine and then it's reactivated to create more versions, it might write over the old ones. This is all speculation and, yes, impossible to say. What I can say is that the Dark Revival might be a literal dark revival of an old cartoon series. We're pretty used to that in this day and age, right? Okay, but jokes aside, this could explain a lot. And speaking of which, this actually might answer a question I had during the Tom and Allison video. I mentioned how or why Allison and Thomas Connor would return to the studio and become Allison and Tom, but we know Allison was working as a voice actress for Archgate Studios. This means she could have very well still been doing Alice Angel's voice. Which is where we hit a second paradox. Because Nathan couldn't have opened Archgate Pictures for Bendy. Because it says in that article that Joey Drew is deceased and we know from visiting his apartment that Joey Drew isn't deceased and Archgate exists and Allison works there. Oh, by the way. Joey Drew is dead. Or, perhaps, he is alive but in hiding, as that would explain this new paradox. This could be where the alternate universe thing comes into it. And I'm not going to say that Joey Drew might be Wilson, I pretty much doubt it. I can say that if Joey is dead, then it is possible we could see him return in this refreshed cycle where all these old issues were dragged back to life. I hope he's not baby Bendy, that would be awkward. Ignoring that, this buyout does explain a lot about the new situation Audrey finds herself in. It doesn't explain everything, including who Wilson is and his role, but it is a clever way to explain the in-game change of characters and textures. In a story sense, it explains why it both is and isn't a sequel. In a meta sense, it explains why familiar faces have updated designs. Though I want to throw this out there, but this could give a viable out for Henry to not appear. They could just say he's in a separate loop, another limbo, the old cycle at the old studio. While I think that narratively that might be a bit of a letdown, it is a better option than just pretending Henry doesn't exist. Okay, now that that's all out of the way, let's go over the Tom thing that I was initially going to talk about. Now that it's been totally overshadowed. Allison Angel's bio was released a couple of days ago. In it they discuss that she has a cute, sidekick wolf named Tom. This may be our confirmation that Tom is in the Dark Revival. There are a few catches, however. While Allison and Tom are intrinsically linked, for some reason we haven't seen anything of him in any of the Bendy and the Dark Revival trailers. I get that you can't show everyone off in one trailer, but this seems notable. I wonder if perhaps they're saying Tom for a reveal in-game because something has changed with him, or if he won't stick around too long. And then I considered, what if the reveal is that the cute, mute Boris who Allison calls Tom, who might not actually be Tom, is a Boris replacement for Tom who has either passed or didn't come through during this reboot. I also was going to go into Allison's role and how her overplay and somewhat sinister look might suggest that she'll become our adversary, but I think it's kind of a moot point. If just to get the point across in a few short words, Allison is a rebel going up against anything evil, but in that vein of thought she might deem something evil that we do not. Though this suspicion largely stems from me questioning Allison's inflated importance. It might just be that she's an ally, but something about her seems too good to be true. Especially since we saw Allison's dark side when she left Henry behind. Sure, at Tom's insisting, but she didn't put up that much of a fight. And the prospect of this being an entirely new Allison Angel doesn't fill me with as much comfort as one would think. Anyway, I suppose that's where I'll leave it for now. We only have a few days before our questions are answered. Some of them at least. We might also be getting Bendy's bio in a few days, which is sure to raise some questions of its own. Imagine if it comes out and it's like, Bendy's a loud-talking wisecracker with a sinister edge who is constantly trying to set traps to kill Audrey. Now that would be one heck of a twist.